In a small, dusty town where the sun rose early and slept late, there lived a girl named Chichi. She was not like the other girls. Her skin was smooth like fresh butter, and her eyes sparkled like stars inside water. Her cheeks were always full, like soft pawpaw, and when she smiled, even strangers smiled back. Everyone called her that girl that looks like light. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Nwosu, were traders. They sold pepper, fish, and sometimes slippers in the market. They didn't know how to read or write, but they were wise in their own way. We didn't go to school, Papa would say, but our daughter will wear coats and sit inside office one day. Mama would nod proudly, tying her wrapper tighter around her waist. They gave Chichi everything she needed: brand new uniforms, sharp pencils, fine shoes with silver buckles, and even a lunchbox that played music when opened. Chichi never lacked anything. If she sneezed, her mother gave her soup. If she coughed, her father rushed with honey. And Chichi did not disappoint. She was the first to reach school every morning and the last to leave. In class, her hand was always in the air. Her books were the neatest. Her letters danced on the page like small ants. When exam time came, teachers would smile as they marked her script. "Chi-Chi again," they'd whisper. "This girl is a gift." When results came out, it was no surprise. Chi-Chi was always first. The other children stopped hoping. They just clapped when they heard her name. "She is the one," they said. "She is going far." Her parents would dance around the compound, singing, "Our daughter is going to wear coat. Our daughter is going to be a big woman." Even the old women in the market began calling her Noir Professor, the professor's child. Chichi loved school. It was her second home. She walked like a queen in the hallway. Not proud, just peaceful. Her friends loved her. Her teachers adored her. Her parents believed in her. Life was soft like a banana. But little did she know, when she entered senior class, the arrival of a new teacher will change her life forever. His name was Mr. Adamu. Mr. Adamu was not like the other teachers. He was big and round like a sack of yam, tied too tight. His belly pushed out of his shirt like a stubborn balloon. His head was shiny, with small patches of hair like grass growing after bushfire. His eyes were always hidden behind round glasses that never stayed in one place. They danced up and down his nose like small goats running on a hill. But what made everyone afraid of him was his cane, long, brown, strong. He carried it everywhere like a staff of power. When he walked, the cane tapped the floor and made everyone sit straight. Even the boys that used to fight at the back of the school suddenly became holy. They would zip their mouths and fix their shirts when Mr. Adamu passed by. Some students called him the lion in human skin. Others said he had eyes like the gods, that he could see through your soul. And that lion was now their mathematics teacher. The first day he entered Chichi's class, the noise in the room died like fire without kerosene. You could hear a pin drop. Mr. Adamu didn't smile. He didn't greet. He just looked around the class slowly, his glasses sliding down his nose. "Mathematics is not a joke," he said, voice deep like thunder. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even Chichi sat still, hands folded. But as Mr. Adamu asked questions, one hand kept going up. It was Chichi's. She answered one question, then another, and another. Mr. Adamu turned and looked at her for a long time. Then he said, "What's your name?" She stood up and said softly, "Chiamaka Nwosu, sir. But people call me Chichi." He didn't smile. He only nodded. But in his eyes, something small flickered, like a matchstick just before fire comes. That was the beginning. The cane, the glasses, the big belly, the quiet nod, and the way his eyes now followed her like shadows follow the moon. That evening, after the bell rang and other students ran out, like chickens freed from a cage, Mr. Adamu remained seated. Then he called out, "Chichi, come to my office." Chichi looked up. Her heart beat a little faster, but she smiled and said, "Yes, sir." She followed him quietly, her shoes making soft sounds on the cement floor. Inside his office, he pointed at a chair. "Sit." She sat. He asked her a few questions about the lesson. She answered them all. He nodded slowly. "You are smart," he said, pushing up his glasses. "Very smart." She smiled politely. "Keep it up," he added, his eyes not leaving her face. "Yes, sir," Chichi replied, still smiling. She stood up when he waved his hand. "Thank you, sir." That became a new thing. Every day after class, he would say, "Chichi, come to my office." And every day she would go. She didn't want trouble. She didn't want him to hate her. So she just kept going. She would sit. He would talk. Sometimes he would ask about her parents. Sometimes he would ask about her dreams. But most times, he just looked at her quietly while saying small things. Chichi didn't feel anything bad yet, but something about his eyes always made her want to leave quickly. Still, she stayed calm. She smiled. She nodded. She said nothing to anyone, because in her heart, she told herself, "He's just a teacher, and I don't want to make him angry." But Mr. Adamu had already planted something in his heart, and that seed was starting to grow. Time passed quickly, and the school session came to an end as they had just finished exams. The air was light. Students laughed, some danced, some prayed for good results. But Chichi didn't worry. She had studied hard, as always. She knew her answers were correct. She even helped two of her friends revise before the paper. But then, that afternoon, Mr. Adamu called her. "Chichi, come to my office." She carried her books and walked there, her steps slow, like someone walking into rain without an umbrella. Inside the office, Mr. Adamu didn't smile. He didn't say, "How are you?" He didn't ask about her day. He just pushed a paper in front of her and said, "You scored the lowest in my class." Chichi's eyes opened wide, like a door pushed by strong wind. "Sir, that can't be true," she whispered. Her voice shook like a dry leaf in the harmattan. He leaned closer. His glasses slid down his nose. "I marked it myself." "You failed." Chichi held her chest. "But I know I answered well." "I did my best, sir." Mr. Adamu stood up. His big belly almost touched the table. His voice became quiet, but heavy. "If you don't do what I say," he said slowly, "you will repeat this class." Repeat? The word hit Chi-Chi like a heavy stone. Her parents would cry. Her friends would laugh. Her dreams would break. "No, sir. Please." "I don't want to repeat," she said quickly. Her knees dropped to the floor like a sack of gari. Her hands started to shake. Mr. Adamu looked down at her. His face was calm, but his eyes were not. He looked like someone who had been waiting for this moment. "Then do what I tell you," he said. Chichi looked at the paper again. The red pen mocked her. Her eyes began to water, but she didn't speak again. Her lips stayed closed, like a locked door. The room was silent. The clock ticked slowly, and the trap had now caught the bird. Mr. Adamu didn't shout. He didn't beat her. He just smirked. A small, strange smile that made Chi-Chi's stomach turn. Then, slowly, he reached out and touched her arm. His hand moved like a snake looking for where to bite. He touched her again, this time lower. Chichi froze. Her body stood still like a tree during a quiet storm. Her breath stopped. Her hands were still shaking, but now they were cold. Next time, Mr. Adamu whispered, "Let me in." Chichi didn't understand at first. Her eyes blinked fast. "Don't tell anybody," he added, bending closer. His breath touched her ear. "And I'll give you a full score, 100 marks." Her heart pounded like a drum in a masquerade festival. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She just nodded. A small, slow nod, like a sad goat who couldn't fight the rope around its neck. He sat back and fixed his glasses. "Good girl," he said. Chichi stood up slowly, her legs weak like cooked noodles. She walked out of the office without looking back. The air outside felt heavy. The sun was hot, but her skin was cold. That evening, she didn't eat. She didn't smile. She didn't even do her homework. She just sat, staring at the wall. But the next day, when results came out, Chichi saw her score. Mathematics, 45 out of 100. Not a fail, not a pass. Just enough to cross to the next class. That was how it started. One touch, one lie, one nod, and the seed Mr. Adamu planted had now taken root. The new term began, and with it came fear. Mathematics was now the most important subject, 60%. That was what the principal said during assembly. "If you fail maths," he shouted, "you fail everything." Chichi felt her heart drop. Her chest became tight, like a cloth that didn't fit. She started reading day and night. Her lamp burned till morning. Her eyes stayed on her books, but her mind was not at peace. Because Mr. Adamu was still there, still watching, still calling her. Every day after class, she would hear his voice behind her. "Chichi, come to my office." She didn't want to go, but she went. She didn't want to sit, but she sat. She didn't want him near, but he came close anyway. He never shouted. He never forced with hand. But he spoke with fear. He used silence like a knife. He smiled, but his smile was poison. And his fingers go through her skirt like a snake, pulling everything off there in his office with all the windows closed and all the students and teachers gone. And Chichi, she obeyed, because if she talked, she would fail. If she disobeyed, she would fail. If she stayed quiet, maybe, just maybe, she would pass. So she stayed quiet. Her friends began to ask, "Chichi, are you okay?" She would just nod. Her mouth smiled, but her eyes didn't. Her books were still neat, but her handwriting had changed. It was no longer bold. It now looked like someone writing while crying. She didn't laugh during break time. She didn't sing on her way home anymore. And when she walked into school, her steps were small, like someone tiptoeing on broken glass. But she said nothing. Not to her mother, not to her friends, not to the school counselor. Because her fear was bigger than her pain, and Mr. Adamu's shadow was longer than her hope. Then one morning, the unthinkable happened. The sun had just started to climb the sky, but inside the Nwosu house, there was no peace. Chichi rushed out from her room and held her stomach. She vomited. Once, twice, 3 times. Her mother ran to her. "What is wrong with you?" she asked, fear already rising in her voice. Chichi couldn't talk. Her body was shaking. Her lips were dry like harmattan bread. Mama ran inside and came back with bitter herbs. "Drink this," she shouted. "You must have eaten something bad." Chichi drank. She vomited again. Mama tied her wrapper and poured more herbs. She used cold water. She used hot water. She tried everything, but nothing worked. By evening, Chi-Chi's eyes were pale. Her legs could no longer carry her. Her skin looked like paper. "Let's go to the hospital," Mama said. Her voice was sharp. Her face was dark. At the hospital, the doctor checked her. He looked at the test result, looked at Chi-Chi, then looked at her mother. He sighed. "She is pregnant." Silence filled the room like thick smoke. Mama's mouth opened. She screamed, "What?" Then she turned to Chi-Chi like a wildfire. "You are pregnant? You're carrying a baby? Whose baby?" She didn't wait for answer. She slapped her. Then she beat her. She bit her. She pulled her hair like it was rope. She pushed her to the floor. "You have killed me," she shouted. "I gave you everything, and this is what you give me back?" But Chi-Chi, she didn't fight. She didn't beg. She just sat on the cold hospital floor and cried. Tears ran down her cheeks like rain on window glass. Her hands wrapped around her belly. Her eyes stayed empty because inside her, something was already broken, and she knew more pain was still coming. They got home that evening. The sky was dark. The clouds looked heavy, like they were also angry. Chi-Chi's father, Mr. Nusu, was standing outside, waiting. His face was stiff. His hands were crossed. When he saw them coming, he didn't say a word. But the moment they entered the house, he raised his hand and slap, slap, two hot ones. Chi-Chi's head turned left, then right. Her cheeks burned like fire. "You are pregnant? Who did this to you?" Papa roared. His voice shook the walls. "Who is the useless boy? Who touched my daughter?" Chi-Chi was quiet. Her lips trembled. Her eyes were red. "Talk now before I break your head," Papa shouted again. Then Chi-Chi opened her mouth, slowly. Her voice was small, like a child who just learned to speak. Mr. Adamu." The whole house went still. Mama shouted, loud, louder than before. "Your teacher? That pot-bellied demon? That man with glasses and cane?" She tied her wrapper tight. She didn't even wear slippers. "Let's go," she said. She dragged Chi-Chi by the hand, out of the house, through the street, past the shops. She walked like thunder. Chi-Chi followed, quiet like a shadow. They reached Mr. Adamu's house. Knock, knock. No answer. "Adamu, come out!" Mama shouted. She banged the door, but the door didn't open. A neighbor came out and whispered. "He left this morning with 2 bags. He said he was traveling, but he didn't say where." Mama stood still. Then she laughed. A cold, bitter laugh. "He has run," she said. She turned to Chi-Chi. Then she slapped her again. "This is what you bring to my life. Shame. Disgrace." Chi-Chi held her belly. Her eyes were tired. Her body was weak. But she didn't cry this time because she already knew the real pain had just begun. After that night, the house didn't feel like home anymore. Chi-Chi's mother stopped talking to her. She stopped giving her food. She would only say, "Sweep the floor, wash the plates, fetch water, cook the soup." But when it was time to eat, she would say, "Go and eat in your husband's house." So Chi-Chi sat outside and cried. Her belly grew round like a full moon. Her old school uniform no longer fit. Her fine clothes were gone. She now wore wrappers that smelled like smoke. Her hair was rough. Her face looked dry. Her feet were always dusty. Every evening, she would knock on neighbors' doors and ask, "Please, do you have small food left?" Sometimes they gave her. Sometimes they didn't. She would sit behind houses, eating cold rice from old plates. The flies followed her everywhere. The shame followed her too. At night, she cried until she slept, alone, on a mat. in the same house where she once danced with joy. And then, one morning, her body started shaking. The baby was coming. She screamed. Mama called one old woman in the street to help. Chichi cried and cried. And by afternoon, the baby came. A boy, fair, software, beautiful. He looked just like her. She called him Emeka. Her heart smiled for the first time in many months. But as she held her baby close, her mother looked at her and said, "Stand up." Chichi looked up, confused. "You are no longer my child. That is your husband's baby. Go to your husband's house. Let him take care of both of you." Chichi opened her mouth, but no words came out. She stood up. She tied her wrapper. She carried her baby on her back. She packed her small bag, and she walked out of the house, step by step, tear by tear, with her baby behind her and nothing else in her hands, only the road ahead and pain in her heart. Chichi walked and walked. Her feet were sore. Her eyes were heavy. Her wrapper kept slipping. But she held her baby tight like a treasure she didn't want to drop. The sun burned her back. The wind slapped her face. Still, she kept going. She passed farms, bushes, and small houses. Her legs shook like broomsticks in the rain. But she didn't stop until she reached another town. At the edge of the town, under a big tree with wide branches like open arms, she sat down. She didn't cry. She had no tears left. She just sat, quiet, weak, her belly empty, her hands full. Her baby Emeka slept on her chest like a kitten. Then someone touched her shoulder gently. It was an old woman. Her eyes were kind. Her wrapper was old. Her hands were thin like broomsticks. But her voice was warm. "My child," the woman said, "you look hungry. Come." She gave Chichi food, hot yam and red oil. Chichi ate with shaky hands. The woman smiled. "Rest in my house," she said. "You and your baby are safe." Chichi followed her. The house was small, with a leaking roof, but it smelled like pepper soup and peace. That night, Chichi laid on a mat with Emeka beside her. For the first time in a long time, she slept like a child. Her heart rested. But morning came with sorrow. The old woman did not wake up. Chichi shook her gently, then harder. "Grandma, Mama, please." But the woman's eyes stayed closed. Her chest didn't rise. Her hand was cold. She was gone, just like that. The only person who showed Chichi kindness had left the world in her sleep. Chichi's breath stopped. She had already seen how quickly people can turn on someone they don't understand. Her heart began to pound like a drum. She looked around the room. She looked at the door. Her chest tightened. She remembered her parents. She remembered the beating, the slaps, the names. She remembered how the village people once called her witch. Now, here she was, again, alone, with a dead woman in a strange village. "They will kill me," she whispered. Her hands shook. She was a stranger in this village, and if they found her with a dead old woman in the house, they might kill her and her baby. Before dawn, Chichi packed up her few belongings, wrapped baby Emeka tightly against her chest, and fled into the unknown once more. No one saw her leave. No one knew where she went. Only the wind followed her, and the pain she was trying to outrun. This time, she headed for the city. The city was loud. Big cars, big buildings, big noise, but no big heart. Chichi walked into it like a shadow, small, silent, and forgotten. She didn't know anybody. Nobody knew her. She had no money. She had no food. She had only Emeka and hope. For days, she slept under bridges. She laid Emeka on her chest. and used her wrapper as a blanket. Every night she sang to him, broken lullabies with shaking lips. Every morning, she woke up with cold bones and empty hands. She begged near busy streets, "Please, just bread." Some people looked away. Some gave her coins. Some told her to go back where you came from. One day, she saw a small restaurant by the roadside. She walked in, holding Emeka close. "Please, I can wash plates." The owner looked at her, then at the baby. Okay, you can try." For 3 days, Chichi washed and scrubbed. She cleaned oil from pots. She mopped the dirty floor. But Emeka cried sometimes. She had to stop working to carry him, to breastfeed, to calm him. And on the fourth morning, the manager shouted, "This is not a baby care center. You're too slow. Go away." He threw a wet rag at her feet. Chichi left quietly. Back to the bridge. Back to the cold. Back to the night. That night, the police came, big flashlights, loud voices. "Clear this place! Go! Move!" Chichi picked up Emeka and ran. She didn't know where. She just ran. Through dark corners, past closed shops. Her legs were tired. Her chest burned. But she didn't stop until she reached a quiet street. The houses were tall. The gates were painted gold. Big flowers stood like guards in front of mansions. Then it started to rain. Soft at first, then heavy. Emeka cried. Chichi dropped her bag, sat on the ground, and pulled her wrapper over them. She pressed him to her chest. The gate behind her was cold against her back. She whispered, "Just one night, that's all we need." She didn't know whose house it was. She didn't care. She just needed sleep, shelter, safety. The rain poured like a broken sky. Chichi sat on the wet floor, her back pressed to the tall gate. Emeka shivered on her chest. His little hands clung to her skin. She whispered, "Hold on, my baby. Just a little longer." Then, that night, fate showed her mercy. The gate creaked. A deep engine hummed. A black luxury car drove in slowly, its lights bright like morning. It stopped. The door opened. A tall woman stepped out, dressed in black lace and golden earrings that danced as she moved. Her eyes were sharp, but her heart was soft. She was a politician. Her name was Honorable Clara. She looked at Chichi and paused. She was startled to find a young mother and a baby sleeping by her gate. She didn't shout. She didn't frown. She walked closer and knelt down in the rain. "My dear, what happened to you?" Chichi looked up. Her lips trembled. Her voice was tired. She spoke, slowly, painfully. She told her everything about Mr. Adamu, about her parents, the beatings, the baby, Mama Yoma's death, the nights under the bridge, the hunger, the job, the shame. The woman listened quietly, and then her eyes filled with tears. "You've suffered," she whispered. "Too much." She stood up and held the gate open wide. "You will not sleep in the rain again. Come in." Chichi followed her into the house. The air smelled like flowers and peace. She gave Chichi a towel. She gave Emeka warm milk. She gave them a guest room with soft sheets and light that didn't flicker. That night, Chichi cried into the pillow, not from pain, but from relief. Morning came. Chichi folded the wrapper, packed her bag, and was ready to leave. But Honorable Clara stopped her. "Where are you going?" "You've helped me enough," Chichi said. "I can't stay." "Yes, you can," the woman said. "I need someone to help with house chores. You'll work here, you'll eat here, you'll sleep here, and your son will grow here." Chi-Chi's eyes widened. She knelt down. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you." "Stand up," the woman smiled. "You don't kneel to me. You're not a beggar." From that day, Chichi became a maid, not with chains, but with dignity. She cleaned the house, she fetched groceries, she watered the flowers, and Emeka, he ran around the house calling the woman Big Mommy, and the woman smiled every time he did. He was enrolled into the best school in town. That was how new life started for Chichi and her son. Quietly, gently, like a small plant growing after heavy rain. Years moved like a slow river. The house that once held pain now carried joy. Emeka grew tall, strong, and full of light. Big Mommy loved him like the son she never had. She held his hand to school every morning, kissed his forehead, packed his lunch, and taught him to speak kindly, walk proudly, and dream without fear. He called her Big Mommy, but she was more than that. She was a ladder, a shelter, a blessing. Chichi watched quietly, always in the background, sewing, saving, planning. Her hands stitched clothes, but her pain stitched strength. She started a small business by the corner of the street, using old wrappers and borrowed thread. One by one, women came. "Make mine like that gown you wore to church. Give me that style you gave Big Mommy." Money started to flow. Her fingers worked day and night. She bought one machine, then two, then a small shop, then workers. The girl who once begged for leftovers now had a fashion brand with her name printed in gold letters above the door. And Emeka, he was intelligent like his mother, grew into a young man filled with ambition. From primary to secondary to university, he stayed on top. First in class, head boy. Best in speech, best in heart. When he graduated with honors, cameras flashed. People clapped. Big Mommy wept. And with her guidance, he entered politics, determined to be a force for good. At first, it was small, meetings, rallies, speeches in markets. Then it became big, billboards, TV, posters on walls. "Vote Emeka, a new light for our future." He told the world about his mother, Chichi. He told them about her courage. He didn't hide her story. He wore it like a badge. He said, "If a woman can rise from ashes and raise a son in pain, then that son must turn pain into power." And the people listened. They voted, they danced, they screamed, they lifted him high. Emeka became governor. Cameras followed him. Children called his name. Mothers prayed for him. Big Mommy sat proudly beside him. Chichi, dressed in her own design, stood behind him with tears in her eyes. It looked like a happy ending, like a fairy tale. But the joy was short-lived. One evening, as the sky turned orange and the market began to close, a video appeared online. A man sat by the roadside. His clothes were torn. His beard was long, like a forgotten bush. He looked into the camera and cried. "Emeka is my son," he said. "He left me to suffer. I sleep outside. I beg for food. But he wears fine clothes and lives like a king." People watched, and they believed. He left his father? A man like that should not lead us. Even a goat feeds its parent. The same mouths that shouted his name now spat it out. The same hands that clapped for him now pointed fingers. Some people threw away his posters. Some said, "He will forget us too." The news spread fast, like fire on dry grass. And Emeka? He sat in his office, silent. He watched the video. He replayed it, again and again. The man's voice echoed in his head. "I'm his father." Tears filled his eyes. He stood up. He walked slowly to his mother's room. She was sitting on the floor, folding wrappers. "Mommy," he said. His voice was small. She looked up. He held out the phone. "Who is this man?" Chichi stared at the screen. Her hands froze. her breath stopped, and her heart started beating the same way it did many, many years ago. She held his hands. "It's time," she whispered. She called for a public gathering. She asked the press to come. She told Big Mommy to sit beside her. She asked Emeka to stay strong. And then Mr. Adamu arrived. The same man who once walked with power, now limping, with broken sandals and fake tears in his eyes. He sat on the stage and spoke first. "I raised Emeka," he lied. "I sold my land for his school fees. I begged just to feed them. And now they have thrown me away." The crowd murmured. But Chichi stood up. She didn't shake. She didn't shout. She just told the truth. From the beginning, the class, the cane, the lies, the threats, the pregnancy, the rejection, the pain, the baby, the streets, the death of Mama Joma, the kindness of a stranger, the rise from nothing. The tears filled the air like rain. Some people wept loudly. Others bowed their heads in shame. Big Mommy held Emeka's shoulder. And Emeka, he cried like a child. Mr. Adamu stood up quietly and tried to sneak away. But police were already waiting. They grabbed him, cuffed him, charged him with abuse, with defamation of character, with destruction of a life. This time, he didn't escape. He was dragged out like the coward he had become. And Chichi, she didn't look back, because she had already looked pain in the eye and survived. Later that week, Emeka and Chichi returned to the same village that once threw her out. The village looked the same, but time had passed. The same dust still danced on the red earth. The same crooked houses still leaned against the wind. But something was different now. Chichi was no longer the girl with swollen feet and a crying baby on her back. She was a woman, strong, whole, unshaken, and beside her stood Emeka, tall, confident, and dressed like a man the world must respect. The car parked at the village square. People gathered. Heads turned. Mouths whispered. "Is that not? It is him. It's the governor." And then they saw her. Chichi, the same girl they called shame, the same girl they threw away like old cloth, now walking with grace, now walking like someone who had danced with fire and didn't burn. Her parents' house was quiet. She entered the compound. Her mother was sitting on the ground. Her wrapper faded, her back bent like a broken broom. Her father was inside, too weak to rise, his voice barely louder than a whisper. They looked up as the shadow entered the room. Then their eyes opened wide. "Emeka," her mother asked, voice shaking. The governor," her father stammered. Chichi stood behind her son, her eyes full of silent tears. They fell to their knees. "We are sorry," they cried. They wept. They trembled. But Chichi said nothing. She just looked at them for a long time, then turned and walked out. Later that month, she sent caretakers. They brought food, medicine, and clean clothes. She didn't return to curse them. She didn't return to shame them. She returned to show them what grace looked like. And she never forgot Mama Joma. She told Emeka, if not for her, we wouldn't be here. So they built something new, a home, a foundation, for every girl who was once abandoned, for every child born in shame. They called it Mama Joma's Light. And through that name, a poor old woman who died alone now lives forever in the story of those who rise. Because pain can bury you, or it can build you. And Chichi, she chose to rise. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video, comment what you learned from the tale, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more enchanting tales just like this one. Thank you.